Today's sponsor is Audible.com, who has more than 180,000 audiobooks and spoken word audio products. Get a free audiobook of your choice at audibletrial.com/CA Telecast. This month we're recommending The Disaster Artist, My Life Inside the Room, the greatest bad movie ever made, by Greg Sestero and Tom Bissell.
Greetings, travelers. My name is Nick Murphy.
And my name is Satchell Drakes.
And welcome to the Cinephilia Anonymous Telecast. We are going to take you on an interstellar adventure through the darkest corners of your mind to unlock your hidden passion for cinema.
Yeah, I got a pretty good harmony on that one, dude.
Yeah, we got some good harmony, man.
So you guys don't even know. You guys weren't even a part of the last cut that we did. It was so good. It was so fresh. And then QuickTime decided I'm just gonna do my own thing. F you guys, and it crashed on me. You know what?
Yeah, I'm gonna skip out of that. Sorry, Satchel. We can't talk about harmonizing right now.
But for a split second, I bugged out, and Nick Murphy just has this ability to keep his cool. So as I was telling you before we went on, like I'm super into listening to like team based, some leadership, but mostly like team based and like relational, like strengths and personality types. So like Myers-Briggs, but more tuned for like working in the context of a group. And something tells me that you're just like the rock in every circumstance. Like everyone's freaking out and you're like, no man, it's gonna be all right. No, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think
that's been a consistent
accurate
theme. That's been a consistent theme. I don't know if I mean, I leave it to you. I don't know if I freak out, but in moments where I'm like, I don't know where this is gonna go. I don't feel good about it. You just feel good all the time.
I have a really positive disposition on most things, and like most times too. Like I think everybody gets that like crippling self-doubt every once in a while, where you're like, you know what, I'm terrible. Everything I do is terrible, and it's never gonna get better, right? And then you just kind of like pick yourself up. Like I get like bouts like that, like every once in a while. Like, did you ever see Forgetting Sarah Marshall?
Yeah.
So my favorite scene in that is when like. Why can't I remember his name now? In the show, in the movie,
Jason Segel.
Jason Segel, yeah, his name is Peter in the thing. He's like playing the song by himself. It's like
I remember.
It's like, Peter, you suck.
Yeah,
Peter, you suck. Peter, you don't do anything of value. And I always like think about that. I'm like, Nick, you suck. You don't do anything of value.
Yeah, dude.
No, man. I think you gotta. Yeah, I think I have like in the heat of the moment. I'm cool, calm, and collected 90% of the time.
Yeah, that's good. I'm gonna need that.
Good, man.
That's teamwork.
Super team foreman.
Yeah, man.
We were just talking about harmonizing too, and you have perfect pitch. You revealed to me.
Yeah, and then I revealed that I lied. I don't have it.
You don't have it.
I don't have that skill.
And then I revealed that I had a brother, or I have a brother.
Yeah, this is good. Recap. Yeah, and then I was
jealous.
Right. Yeah, jealous of the band, and then I was like, "Whoa, news! You have a brother, tight."
Dude, it worked out nicely. All right, so this week on the show, it's fitting that our tangent intro right there is doesn't make any sense. Still fascinating.
Full circle.
Much like the film that we're talking about, dude. Segue king right there, man.
Yeah, dude, you nailed it, man.
We're talking about the Room. I think we should just jump right in. So
hi, Nick.
We did kind of a two-part thing where we're talking about The Room, the film, and then we're also talking about the book,
The Disaster Artist.
Hi, Nick.
It just landed with you.
It did. It took a second. Oh, gotcha. So yeah, it was our first time doing like kind of like an audiobook kind of thing. We're doing we have a thing set up with Audible where you can get a free audiobook. Then I'm sure that commercial played in the beginning of this. So if you haven't done that, you should do that because it'd be really cool. It's a fascinating listen.
Yeah. And if you're super into it, really, like you could just, sign up now. listen to the first 10 minutes and totally dive in and get an idea of what a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, and then you're set to go. Yeah. I'm curious. So, okay, let me give some backstory about The Room, and then we'll jump right into it. So, The Room is a 2003. Wikipedia says romantic drama film. I don't know if that's true or not. Written, directed, produced, and starring Tommy Wiseau. Right. And it had a $6 million budget. That's,
wow. That
the
is
information I gleaned from that.
Impressive and sad.
Yeah, right? So, so The Room, for the uninitiated, The Room is a notoriously bad film. It's action-wise, it's just bad quality. There's people say like bad acting, bad story, just a prime example of terrible cinema. But for some reason, gained this cult status and this fascination with the film, and it captivated me, man. Like listening to the audiobook, I was transfixed. I was just like,
definitely
hooked. I want to know everything about this movie, about the production, about Tommy, about Greg, about everything, man. It was so. I suggested that we do The Room for this. You had heard of The Room before, Satchell?
Yeah, I had heard about it many times. So it was, I guess it always ended up being like a part of some kind of joke, or like there would be like a reference that I didn't understand. And I would hear these jokes about The Room, or like, wow, don't make something as bad as The Room for the past 4 or 5 years. So for me, I went into it and I wanted to make it a challenge. I mean, as you guys can imagine, people who are listening, when we go into a film where, we're kind of taking notes, and those notes will end up becoming the bullet points that we might speak to, some talking points we might speak to as we kind of go over it together and record it for the podcast. For me, usually when I watch a film, I write down everything that's peculiar, funny, weird, or potentially wrong, because there's usually something to kind of explore in that. And what I realized after about the first 15 minutes into this film is that if I do that, I'm going to have a really big document. And actually what I'm going to have to do is write down positive takeaways. So it inverted it, you know what I mean? And trying to get a better understanding of, essentially trying to get into Tom Wiseau's head, which was great for the audiobook because that's essentially what Greg did. Yeah. And with by the way, the audiobook version, so I have some coworkers who read the book, and we were talking about it, and I was like, but dude, if you read it, that does not count. You need to listen to the audiobook because Greg gives the best impression of Tommy Wiseau. Like, it is so spot on. He has that inflection and indistinguishable accent down to a T.
It's phenomenal. And like, I guess I would imagine that we'll probably do our Tommy Wiseau impression in this podcast once in a while. So if you're adverse to bad impressions of Tommy Wiseau, spoiler alert, we're going to do it like 10 times probably. I think my favorite Tommy Wiseauism that I picked up in the audiobook is like anytime Tommy doesn't want to do something or like wants to like dismiss something, it's like, no, I'm sorry, you cannot at this time. Like it's always like at this time. Like, it's so ridiculous. Like when they're like the cast and the crew were asking for water, and he's like, no, I'm sorry, producers say we cannot have water at this time.
Dude, if someone told you that you're pretty good at that, that's good.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But my favorite of Greg's was he was talking about, yeah, I learned in LA real hard. He trained real hard. Kick you in the ass. I got A minus. I just love like.
Oh, and he's
just,
talking
where
about
did you learn?
The Vince. He's like, oh, the Vince. He kicked your ass.
Yeah.
So good. Oh my god. The great thing about the book is that like you watch the movie, and it's an experience, right? And then the book, it just dives into it, almost every question you have about it. Greg like addresses and like he talks about like where some of the best scenes come from. He talks about like the oh hi Mark like that scene and it like when you watch that scene, my wife and I were actually just watching it before we got on just to like refresh my memory, and it came on And I paused. I was like, Rebecca, you got to get in here. You're gonna miss it. Hurry up, hurry up. And she comes in right as soon as like the rooftop door opens. And be like, I did not hit her. It's bullshit. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark. And like that transition of like, I'm on the phone. I'm having a conversation.
And his
with someone
face
about how,
too. Like
it's just such a weird transition. I didn't hit my girlfriend. I swear she's a liar. Oh, hello, friend, hanging out on the roof.
Or the fact that Lisa completely dismisses the fact that her young neighbor wants to be with her, even though he clearly knows that she's married.
Dude, right? Like it starts up and it's like, is Denny asking for a threesome with Tommy and
Right.
Lisa?
Right.
And then, Tommy's just like,
and then Tommy on the roof is
know what
completely
they say,
understanding.
three's a crowd, Denny. What?
I just like to watch you guys.
I just like to watch you guys. Dude, Denny's like my favorite character.
I know.
You're not my fucking mother.
Where'd you get the money?
I don't know. I needed it to buy things. Like, there's just so many bad moments.
What kind of drugs did you take?
What kind of drugs is it? Dude, the mother is like the best character, dude. Like, she's just like,
I
the
know.
one part was just like, how many people live in this apartment?
I know. I love how she called it, and then she's like, "Yep, I definitely have breast cancer.
I definitely have breast cancer. I got the result back. Oh, Mom, it'll be fine." Oh man, it's just out of control. Like you're watching it, and you're like, "What am I seeing?" Like it's. I think Greg says in the book, he's like, it's almost like he says like a foreigner interpretation of like what life in America like, and it's almost like you're watching like aliens in human skin try to be human,
try to be people.
So bonkers.
It's like a weird idea of a romantic film, but like everything is like out of order, and there are emotions there that you would find in a romantic film or like a soap opera. I'd probably liken it more to a soap opera, but there's no appropriate build up for any of it. So it just happens and you understand the social cue, but nothing is ever justified, I guess.
No, it doesn't make any sense. It does feel like it's all over the place too. Because I was watching, there's like two scenes on the roof back to back. It's like Denny gets caught with drugs, and then there's a scene with Mark and Tommy. I did not hit her. That happens on the roof, and then so does Denny coming up and being like, Tommy, I love her, right? And he's like, oh, Lisa loves you as a friend. Like I almost feel like that Denny scene should have gone like in the beginning after Tommy like dismisses Denny. Like I almost wonder if it's just like out of place, and like I started to like question like the whole timeline of the whole movie. Like is everything just out of place and out of sorts, or it does have like a plot flow, but I wonder if like some scenes just like needed to be somewhere else. I don't know, man. Yeah,
I tried to make sense of it. I think the big thing for me was like trying to figure out why is it wrong, because there are a lot of humorous things, and we could spend this whole hour like talking about like all the funny parts and things that were obviously wrong. I mean, that's kind of what it's known for,
right?
But like I think things like what I realize is that whole small conversation that is Tommy actually named Tommy in the film? I forgot no, it's not.
He's Johnny in the movie.
Johnny, right, Johnny.
I have a feeling we're going to be doing that between Greg and Mark and Johnny and Tommy. I think we're going to do that all the time.
Because we listen to the audiobook where they refer to themselves by their real names, so the characters are all jumbled up. Yeah.
Right.
But Johnny,
even Tommy, I wonder if that like that's got to be intentional, but not intentional. Intentional in the sense that Tommy did it like that, because at one point he, in the book, Greg talks about how the two of them went to go see The Talented Mr. Ripley. And he's like, that's his inspiration for writing The Room. And he's like, I'm going to name, you're going to play the best friend character. And I'm going to name him Mark after Mark Damon. Right. So it's like this weird misnomer that happens. And I wonder if like, did Johnny Tommy, like, is that, I think that's like the same kind of thing. It's like Mark and Matt becomes Mark, and Tommy becomes Johnny, and
they cut. Yeah, I get it.
And there was one other time he does it. Oh, so the guy Don, his name, and they refer to him as Don in the entire thing, and his name's not Don, it's Dan. Like Greg says that his actual name is Dan one time, but Tommy always referred to him as Don, so they always just called him Don for the whole time. It's so crazy.
It's so bizarre. And what I'm amazed by the level of patience that everyone had on set with
Yeah.
for a production like that.
Well, part of it. I mean, like he went through 3 different camera crews and
Yeah.
Mutiny and Uprising and stuff. But yeah, I agree. Like I think we could spend the whole time like we're like laughing about all of it, but like I almost feel, I don't know if it's just my brain trying to connect the dots and trying to make sense of the whole thing and trying to make an excuse for this movie, I guess. But I almost want to say that there's like this like David Lynch quality to it, or like a I know people are gonna laugh that I just compared Tommy Wiseau to David Lynch, or I was gonna say
Sure.
like Terrence Malick, but like like there's some kind of like weird, for as narrative as this story is, there's some weird non-narrative thing happening in this movie that my brain is trying to like piece together and figure out like what everything represents and why certain things happen. And like I almost feel like,
well, we certainly get a, sorry, go ahead.
No, I definitely feel like the book is such a good companion piece to this, like not just for the subject matter, but it gives so much insight. And I think really, for as culty as the Room the movie is, having the book there really like lets you kind of like look at some of that stuff underneath, where you would see that and be like, I wonder what Johnny was actually like, and you get some like understanding of that. And then I think that gives you like insight as to like Tommy's, where he was when he was writing it, and like what some of this stuff could mean. I came up with these like bonkers theories that we'll go into and stuff, but I think there's more to this movie than just like it's goofy and the foreign guy says funny things kind of of thing,
No, there is more, because it came close. Because like if it were just flat out, there's like a reach for something, right? And it's almost like what makes this film endearing, or what makes people watch it over and over again and show their friends to watch it, besides like how cringeworthy a lot of the scenes are, is that there's this intentional reach for something. Like there's this intentional reach for like some kind of romanticism that doesn't quite make it there. And it's that failed pursuit that's really interesting. Because, I don't know, I've watched things that are just flat out bad. Like, I've watched, like, really embarrassing, like, student films. I've had marathons with friends where we just watch, like, NYU senior thesis films that are, like, horrible. And it's different than that. At least for me it is. So for me, like, the places where I see a reach is, like, providing a backstory where Johnny is, like, this super loving, blameless person who takes his neighbor under his wing and adopts him and treats him as if he's his own son.
Right.
And the failure is that that's never really explained in the beginning, and things seem worse than they actually are, despite the fact that he's like very sexually mysterious and his attractions are in the wrong place, in like unorthodox places. There's like this relationship, and there are a whole bunch of places where there are these relationships and they're not explicitly explained until like later on in the film, But the one thing that we do know for sure is that it was Tommy's intent to create and, in my opinion, retell a story about a story about a blameless Samaritan who was betrayed by everybody that he loved. And I want to believe that there's some sort of tie-in between that poorly told story and the mystery around his country of origin, where he made all of his money, like the actual Tommy, and just a lack of explanation as to why he made the creative decisions that he made. Now, obviously, we can't speculate too deeply on that, but it gets pretty serious. I mean, spoilers: this guy commits suicide. You know what I mean? I wonder if anything is. I mean, have you thought at all about what? Have you tried drawing any lines between that, or coming to any conclusions? Or
for the finale, I guess I was trying to figure out like what it is, other than just like, I feel like it ends and it's just a big like, look at me, you should all feel bad for what you did to me.
Right.
I was recently watching Orange is the New Black, and there's a flashback for one of the characters that like I kind of like didn't really like in the first couple seasons, but have like grown to appreciate, especially in this season. He has like a really good arc that happens, and there's like a flashback series or flashback episode with him, and he is a nice guy. He has this thankless job. He's like he's not a corrections officer. He's like one of the guys who like runs the prison, and he has this thankless job, and he is like doing everything, and he just keeps kind of getting shit on by everybody, and like nobody appreciates like the work or like the sacrifice that he makes. And in his backstory that happens to him like throughout his life, he's just a really nice guy trying to do the right thing. And then he has this conversation with this girl that he's seeing, and she's just like, you can't be mad and resentful at the world. We can't be mad and resentful at the world because you're holding the door open and nobody's saying thank you. Like, you can't be mad about that.
Right.
Like, you need to, do right by yourself first. And like, I almost feel like with Tommy, like he paints himself, Johnny paints himself in this way, that he's just like, oh, I do all these things for all these people and they're still treating me bad. And I feel like that's a reflection of his life too. Like in the book, Greg relays the story that Tommy is like, he's just like, I hate all these people that are working for me. They don't appreciate that I'm giving them a job. All they do is,
right.
Make fun of me behind my back and stuff like that. And I feel like that's kind of something that he's dealt with his entire life.
Everybody betrayed me. I fed up with this world.
Do you get a soundboard?
Yes.
Dude, that's awesome.
This is all I play at work now. I turn everyone in my office onto it.
Wait, dude, this just turned into a radio show, man. It's not a podcast anymore.
I know.
It's a radio show. And that's exactly what it is.
Lisa.
You tear me apart, Lisa. But that's what it is, man. It's like Tommy Wiseau has dealt with that his entire life, and now he has this
platform to express that.
Yeah, he has a platform to express that, and that's the story that he wants to tell. And then as he's trying to tell this story, that is happening again. Like that's got to be soul crushing. You know what I mean? And and then for the movie to end that way, for it to be like, look what you people drove me to do. And I feel like that's kind of like the overall message of the whole thing. And yeah, man. The first time I watched it, I was not expecting the gun part. I was just like,
yeah, me neither.
What is this?
I kept thinking, so you made that connect. For me, the connection that I made was like, Johnny was essentially supposed to be like the Howard Rourke from The Fountainhead. I don't know if you ever read The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand, but he's essentially this like young architect who is like super talented, but gets taken advantage of by everybody above him. And it eventually becomes Ayn Rand's, manifesto for objectivism and like sort of like the ultimate prevail of those who are like well-intentioned and like creative and, are taken advantage of by those who, in her perspective, have like less substance and stuff. Obviously, this is a much more, much less intellectual
version of
version of that discourse of that, but there is still this like crazy victimization. And I think what's even more interesting is how like in Tommy's eyes, he views, at this point, like Greg is pretty clear about it. So I feel pretty safe being clear about like, there's this clear parallel that even Tommy sees between himself and the protagonist. And it's just interesting that to him, he sees himself as this laughably normal person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like Johnny is
just a normal guy working at a bank who works really hard.
Who wants a promotion in general. Like there's no, like all of these components aren't properly built out. And for whatever reason, there's no need. There's almost like this understanding that if these particular characteristics are in place, that the character doesn't really need any depth and he's just a normal, good-willed person.
Right.
And everyone around him is just sort of like this conniving, non-contributing leech on his life and his patience and his time.
Yeah, and I guess that's how he views everyone. He's just like,
right.
I'm just a normal American and everyone is just like out to get me.
And that's probably where he gets his, for lack of better words, like decadent entitlement, because when Greg's sort of describing any moment that they have together, like he talks about how Greg sort of like has to mentally prepare himself to apologize for Tommy walking all over the people who are around him, whether it's at a restaurant or whatever the case may be. It's interesting. like really seriously trying to piece together like the sociological underpinnings of it. I mean, I'm really excited to see what James Franco does with the Disaster Artist. I don't know if you heard that he's totally picking that up and turning that into a film.
Yeah, I heard him and Seth Rogen and his producing partner got the rights. James Franco is going to direct and star as Tommy Wiseau, I think, and Dave Franco is going to play Greg, I think.
That's yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what the news is about it. So I'd be interested to see that. I'd also be interested in a shot-for-shot remake with James. With the Franco brothers.
I'm sure there'll be some scenes in there. There definitely will be some on the set scenes, and I want to see that.
Yeah, dude, there's got to be. You know what, too, man? Like you were talking earlier about like it being bad, and like like the student film mentality of it. There's from a technical standpoint, the movie is a mess. I mean, so Tommy wanted to shoot this film in HD and on film side by side, which is something no one had ever done before. And Tommy got it in his head that he would be the first one to do it. He was the first one to do it because it doesn't make any practical sense to do that. Anyway, you know what I mean? Like he was it's never been done before. It's like, well, yeah, no one's ever done it before because it's the dumbest idea ever. Right. So like in his head, like he was like groundbreaking in that sense. But
he seems to be in this headspace where no one is allowed to convince him otherwise of things he's convicted of.
Oh yeah, he's just like
if he believes it,
100%
he throws money
right
at it and he gets it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But this movie is bad, and it's great. Like it's a great movie because of how bad it is, and for how sincere it is. And I think that's what people misunderstand about bad movies. Like there's some people that I went to film school with and people that I know who just make bad things on purpose, right? Mm-hmm. Like, like the Grindhouse movies came out, and I really like Grindhouse. I like both of those movies that came out, and they were bad on purpose because they're paying homage to that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that's a different kind of thing. Like people who make bad things on purpose, like, I'm trying to think of an example of it, but just something. People get confused about movies like this all the time, where they're like, they look at like a trauma movie. They're like, oh, it's so bad. It's like, well, it's bad, but they're trying to make it. They're not trying. Those people who are making the film aren't trying to make it bad. They're trying to make it really good. They're just very bad at making it good, and that's where the fascination, and that's where the interest, and that's where the creativity comes out. And I think that's what people are drawn to. But when people just seek out making a bad movie on purpose, it always falls flat for me, and it never feels like right. It just feels like forced. And
It's sort of like this. I mean, I hope this doesn't frustrate anyone. If it does, well, I don't know. Too bad. But it's sort of like a trend with like YouTube culture, right? Where there's this. This is a video that I threw up on the internet. So here's this idea that I'm reading off the script and making this lackadaisical effort to put something out there.
Right. When
there is room to really care for it, and it does it in that it has that same effect where it ends up coming off very forced and I don't know, disingenuine, right? Like it's supposed to be genuine because it's like relatable and like the sort of like Joe the Plumber like take on like putting together a video production, you know what I mean? But but in the end I don't know. There's something about being conscious of the convention that like takes away from the humor in it.
Yeah, man. It's like Larry the Cable Guy, you know? Like Larry the Cable Guy is good at what he does, man. He's not He's not actually Larry the Cable Guy. He's like Jim somebody, you know what I mean? That's just a character that's a character, and he's like playing that on purpose. But some people, there were like so many like derivatives from that where they were just like Southern comic guy, and it's like, no, well, that guy, he's trying to make something good, and whatever, however you feel about him, this comedy and stuff like that. But there were so many people who were just doing bad stuff like that. It just feels like a derivative. It doesn't feel like creative or interesting. This movie, I mean, we're probably giving this movie more praise than it deserves, but I mean, who knows? You know what I mean? But like, when people do things that are just they wind up coming across as of poor quality, as opposed to like of poor intentions. I guess I don't know. I feel like when people put something
I'd rather watch
together,
something endearing. I'd rather watch
Yes.
something endearing and then deem it as this person is learning and be okay with it than anything else. Like,
Yeah, man.
there are a lot of like I have a lot of friends or friends of friends who like have bands, and I'll watch them live and they're super good. And the recordings, either because they didn't have the budget or maybe they recorded in a house, they don't sound like polished records, but I don't expect them to, and it doesn't take away from the performance at all because I'm going in understanding all of the constraints that they had to record what they did, and it's not a distraction for me. There's almost like a separate like sense of suspense of disbelief when you're listening to that stuff, just because we're so used to, like, if you actually think about it, I was thinking, this reason this is fresh in my mind is because I was thinking about it on my way to work today, because I have a friend who's like super into like polished like candycore music, you know what I mean? And it's totally fine that like that's where he lands with that, but because of that he has a hard time listening to stuff that is sort of in the making or maybe a part of like an indie division of like a label or whatever, because the gloss isn't necessarily there. And when you think about it, it's actually more unrealistic to believe that like music in its purest, most interesting form is perfectly quantized every time, when it's not. Like, things do go off beat, you know what I mean? And strings do sound weird every once in a while. And like the way we're actually probably okay with, I'd say our natural like standards of like listening to music and like watching things is lower than we'd actually expect. And that's sort of where like things like indie films that are Vimeo release only, or like webisodes that find their way onto YouTube, like that, probably the reason it's probably inaccurate to say that the bar is lower with them. I don't see internet content as like less than or like a bar lower than any other medium. It's just a place where you're watching stuff. But what it has done, I don't know, I guess the accessibility of it has sort of democratized that medium in a way where people kind of realize that they don't need this uber polished like RE kit red camera like production in order to enjoy something. You understand what I'm saying? And
yeah, totally, man.
And I think in that same regard, like relating to back to what you're saying, like a film that reaches for excellence and falls short either in production value or in writing or whatever is a lot more interesting to watch than people pretending to have a hard time making something, which almost seems like a missed opportunity in some ways.
Yeah, I feel like the YouTube thing is a prime example of that. I super agree with that. I find that like the horror genre winds up, for me anyway, feeling like that. It feels like a lot of the horror movies that come out, they're just not on my radar because they all feel derivative. Like everyone who does horror stuff is like, oh, I want it to be like this one 70s horror movie, right? And it's like, well, 70s horror movies, they were trying to make really good films. They were trying to make really good, groundbreaking films. They were trying to shock audiences. They were trying to do all these things. You're just trying to like tap into that part as opposed to like breaking new ground. You're just trying to like retread something that's was already groundbreaking for someone else. Right.
No, I agree. Now I have a follow-up question for that.
Yeah.
Considering what you just said, what do you think about Kung Fury?
You know what, man? Kung Fury is
because it does that, like, but it's also amazing.
right, exactly. Like, so in my defense, I am, contrary to what I just said, I'm a big fan of derivative things, and I'm just a big fan of references. Like, I love when things reference other things. I'm just a big fan of the remix and like mixed media and stuff. So like anytime there's like a reference to another film or anything, I just like love that. It's like my favorite thing. And I mean, I think it's obvious in some of the things that I've made, like our Legend of Zelda thing was like an homage.
Oh,
to, like,
dude. Yeah, that's right. Dude, that must have been right up your alley now that I think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are my dream kind of things. It's like, I love this. I want to show how much I love it by paying homage to it, you know?
Yeah.
So I enjoyed Kung Fury. I thought it was a lot of fun, and it felt like all of those things that we all like. It's great. Kung Fury fell a little flat for me just because I felt as if it was just kind of stuck in this reference hole, you know?
Sure.
There are movies that do that really well. Like Black Dynamite is one of my favorite movies. It's just it fits into that like into that blaxploitation kung fu thing, and they do it right. You know, I enjoyed Kung Fury a lot. I mean, I like supported. I bought like the soundtrack and stuff. I love it. But as like a movie, it just kind of got too caught up in that thing. You know, it got too caught up looking backwards rather than looking forward.
Sure.
If I can say that as vaguely as possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I felt like they were so obsessed with like the reference and the tone and the feel and stuff. It just kind of, I was like, oh, okay, we're back in time and Thor's there. Okay, I'm along for the ride. We'll see where this goes and stuff. But
Right.
as a film, it didn't feel like it had a big payoff. It just felt.
Yeah, you know what it was?
I don't know.
It was.
It just registered wrongly for me. I don't know why. Like I
think
really
part of
enjoyed it.
it.
I loved it, and then I like reflected on it the other day. I was like, I should be in love with that. What didn't strike a chord with me? Like what didn't hit correctly for me?
Part of it might be that it didn't have. Oh my gosh, we're getting into super vague territory, but it didn't have an ebb and flow. Meaning, so part of its charm and novelty is that it's high octane the whole time. Like it's 10 the whole time. Like feeling the muscles, driving, running, jumping off of a building, you know, into a car. Beating up an arcade machine, hacking time, seeing Thor. Like it's all, there is no rest, right? Like
right.
It's just whole notes, like whole staccato notes the whole time, right?
Yeah. Kung Fury
but
is
Black Dynamite
power
was not
chord.
like that. Black Dynamite still followed the rules.
Yeah, it had the intricacies of that kind of thing. Kung Fury is the power chord.
Yeah. There you
know what I
go.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that works, right?
Yeah. No, that's the thing. Yeah, I can't. I'm running to this thing. I kind of like it. I can't. And part of it just has to do with I don't have the vocabulary. I can't intellectualize what it is. I can just compare it to other.
We'll do it. Compare it to other things. Exactly.
Yeah,
I do the
just
same
compare it
thing.
to other art. So.
You know what, too, Satchel? I don't know if you saw Mad Max yet, but I think what you're talking about, that ebb and flow is part of the reason. Like everyone treated Mad Max as if it was like this like religious experience, and I thought it was a great movie. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
But same kind of thing. It just fell a little flat for me. I was just like, I really liked it. Like the first time I saw it, I was like, why didn't I like that as much as I should have? It's got all the things I like. It's got all the action. It's got, you know, I really like Road Warrior where, you know, Max doesn't really say anything. It's more about the experience and the world and stuff. And this is definitely that. Like what didn't register for me? And I think that's what it was. The movie goes to 60 and then it just goes to 70 and it goes to 80 and just like doesn't stop. And the first time watching it, I was thirsty first off, right? Getting out of the movie, and it was just an exhausting film. I mean, it's not a long film. I just felt drained after it. And then I saw it a second time with my wife, and I enjoyed it much more because I think I could take in all those things and appreciate it a little bit more. But that first time, it was just like a little too much. It was just, I don't think I was ready for that pace of filmmaking.
Yeah.
And Kung Fury very much, I think maybe the same kind of thing. It was just like, we're going and we're gone, and not looking back. Well, why don't we take a quick break, and we will be back, and we'll keep talking about The Room. The Cinephilia Anonymous Telecast is produced by Satchell Drakes and Nick Murphy. Music by Mark Junker. You can hear more of his music at junker.ca. That's junker.ca. You can follow the Telecast on Twitter at CA Telecast, subscribe on YouTube at CA Telecast, subscribe on iTunes, and check out our website, catelecast.com.